Welcome to Slow and Steady, the podcast where you get to follow along as we figure out how to build and run a SaaS. I'm Benedikt. Each week we'll give you an honest peek into our lives as we work on our products and keep the lights on by whatever means necessary. Today is August 4th and things are a bit different today. Brian is away traveling, and while we planned to get an episode recorded, it turned out like the Wi-Fi connection just wasn't able to handle it. He could hear me well, but I couldn't barely hear a word of what he was saying, so it made it impossible to have any conversation. But instead of leaving all of you with nothing to listen to, we asked Michele and Colleen of the recently launched Software Social podcast if they'd like to republish their first episodes on our feed. Their format is pretty similar to ours, and I'm super excited that there's finally a podcast like this that isn't hosted by two dudes. And if you agree that this is long overdue, you can subscribe to their show at softwaresocial.dev. And with that, here's their first two episodes.
Welcome to the Software Social podcast, where we invite you to join our weekly conversation about what's going on in our businesses. I'm Michele Hansen.
And I'm Colleen Schnettler.
And this week we're giving you an intro to what this podcast is about and who we are and why we're doing this and why we're hoping you'll join us.
So Michele, can you start by telling us a little bit about your software business?
Yeah, so I am a co-founder of Geocodio, which is a software as a service company. We do geocoding for US and Canada, as well as data matching. And my husband and I started it about 6.5 years ago now as a side project. And we have run it full time for the past 3 years.
So you're basically living the dream, is what you're telling me.
Some people would say that. I bristle at that a little bit. There's definitely a lot more dream to be had. But yeah, definitely people do say that to me, especially people who are looking to create their own software businesses. Which is kind of the boat you're in.
Much like myself.
Yeah.
Yes. So I am a Ruby on Rails developer. I've kind of had a varied career, always in tech. I started as an electrical engineer. I stayed home with my kids for a few years, and then I started learning Rails, and I built up a really successful consultancy. So that has been amazing and a wonderful journey for me, but I have always wanted to start a product business. There's just like this dream of having a product business that you kind of are, in charge of your own life and your own business. You get to make your own decisions. And so that's something I've always wanted. And man, it's hard.
It is hard.
Right? Like it's, I read a lot of startup content. I have read a lot of books. I follow a lot of successful startup founders. And there's so many stories out there that make it seem like, you don't hear about it till they're successful. So it makes it seem like it's easy. And I'm at the very beginning of this journey. And, I'm just getting started. So part of my impetus for doing this podcast with you is obviously to learn a lot about what you can teach people who are in the early stages of their business, and also to stay inspired and, to share with people what it's really like to start a business.
I don't think you give yourself enough credit, Colleen, in saying that you're just at the very beginning. You have been working intently on this for over a year now. I remember it was last summer when you came to me and you were so excited about an idea and this passion you had that was leading you towards that idea. And you started doing user research on it and having something that you were passionate about and then doing the work to see if there's legs to it and then realizing that there aren't. That counts as work. That is valuable, productive work.
I hope so, because it was quite a lot of work. And so just a brief overview is I had an idea to kind of do something with the childcare industry. And I had a founder, someone I was going to work with, and she and I interviewed quite a few people that would have been on our target market. So we kind of took the steps you learn about, with idea generation. And honestly, the truth is, we put in a lot of time and effort, and we found out that it really was not a profitable business idea. And so it's hard to kind of get really excited about something and climb that mountain and then just realize no one wants to buy it. But on the other hand, at least, right? Like at least we found that out before we started writing code.
Right.
So I guess that saved us some time. Didn't you guys have a few projects before Geocodio?
Oh, many. And we had many projects in between that too, that we've launched in the interim. And there's no line that it's hard to find something that sticks. And as you said, nobody cares about something until you're a success, which is a really, really lonely place to be for a very long time. Our first month we launched Geocodio, we made $31. We thought we were a ridiculous success because we were shocked that anybody wanted to pay us. We thought our product was pretty terrible, and we were so shocked that we hadn't even written the code that would tell Stripe to bill people. That was how surprised we were that anyone wanted to pay us. And then we worked on it as a side project for a very long time. And it wasn't until just before I went full time that people started kind of noticing what we were doing and asking us to talk at conferences or be on a podcast. Like that was a very long time where, exactly like you were saying, you don't hear a lot of those stories. You only hear the stories when people are successful. And I think what we're hoping to capture here is some of that granularity that goes in week by week when you're launching something. And then also the kinds of things you face on a daily basis when you have launched something and it's gotten to the point where you can work full time on it. What are the kinds of things that you might be facing at that point? And how do we tackle them?
So you guys had the business for a few years before you went full time, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It was 3.5 years until I went full time. And then my husband went part time 6 months later, and then full time 6 months after that. Like, honestly, we were terrified of paying for health insurance on our own. And that was a big thing that kept us from going full time. We probably could have gone full time a lot sooner, but given the experience I had just a couple months ago trying to buy health insurance, I'm glad I put that off. But it's possible, not to scare anyone. But there's very real fears that come into it. Even when you do have something that works and you have customers and your revenue is increasing, you're going to have a whole new set of anxieties to face. So congratulations. No, everything is solvable.
I think when you're where I am in this process, it seems like so far away, right? Like it seems like, man, if I could just make a product that people want to buy, my life will be rainbows and sunshine and easy every day.
I can see that. And also, our everyday is we've got something that's launched that, has recurring revenue and supports us and everything. And every day there's still people who are upset with us. Every day we discover things with our product that we're like, oh my, that is so obviously bad. Like, we need to fix that. Like, how has that been like that for so long? This is embarrassing. Like that happens. That happened today. It happened yesterday. And at the same time, some of the things you were talking about earlier, that the dream so many people have for having a product business, being able to be your own boss, getting to make decisions, getting to have that level of autonomy and authority and direction over your own work, that doesn't go away. And that definitely keeps me going. And really what makes it worth it when not everything is rosy otherwise.
Yeah, I imagine you're a parent as well, as am I. And I imagine it goes both ways, right? Like, I imagine the flexibility you have with running your own business is amazing to help you parent. But on the other hand, can you ever take a vacation?
Yes and no. I mean, like we started this as a side project, right? And, we both had,
right,
full-time like tech jobs, but in the early years of the business, like I remember the first time that we like took a vacation with money we had earned from the business, which was I think about 2.5 years in. And I remember we were driving on these beautiful roads on Cape Breton Island in Nova Scotia, and it's just like these rolling hills, and it was so gorgeous. And I was replying to someone on intercom at the same time because an issue had come up, and that's just been the case the whole time. And my perspective on that has always been, we're only able to have the life we do because of the business. And so, yes, like very often one of us is dealing with something for work at the dinner table, or when we're on vacation, or when we have life going on, or especially with the pandemic and being at home with other things going on all at the same time. And that has pros and cons. At the same time, working in a corporate job, I think all of us can speak to, there's always some issue that's blowing up on Slack off hours that you have to deal with. And so it's not really that different. The only difference is that when you are responding to that customer, or, once we took a call with a potential large customer while on a road trip through Belgium, was that we got all of the money from that, right? Like, it wasn't that like we would have to prove to our boss at the end of the year, like, look at all this time I did all this work I did when I was on vacation, all these time I put in on the weekends and at night. Like, so, hey, like, give me a 2% raise, right? Like, you don't have to deal with that. Like, if you land that contract and you sacrifice a part of your vacation, you get the money. It's very clear cut. And so that makes it worth it for me. I feel like my daughter might have a different perspective, and sometimes she's like, you guys need to stop talking about Geocodio at dinner. Let's talk about something else that's not boring. So, I always joke that if, maybe our business talk will either make her adept at business herself, or she's just going to totally rebel and not want anything to do with it. But, I mean, you've got clients. I mean, that's not like, you don't ever get to fully log off either, right?
No, I really don't. So as in my consultancy, I am a single point of failure. Like, I have one really large contract, really big client that I share with another developer, which is nice. But if something goes down, or they want something, I'm usually relatively accessible. It does make it hard to, it's interesting. It does make it hard to really take a vacation. And it's interesting because I have never been a good office employee. I don't like working for other people. I don't like sitting in meetings. I don't like other people to tell me how to do my work or when to do my work. So consulting has really been great for me. But there is this joke that like you spend all your time trying to go from employee to consultant, and then as soon as you're a consultant, you're ready to jump to something else. Because sometimes it feels like you have multiple bosses, right? Because you have like several different clients, they all have different needs, they're all contacting you. So it has given me immense flexibility with which, I couldn't work an office job right now with the pandemic, and now apparently we're homeschooling the children because they're not going back to school. So I have to have this flexibility. But, it does feel like I always have to be plugged in. Like, I always kind of have to be on top of it. And if I am a single point of failure, so if I can't figure it out or I can't get it done, like, it doesn't get done. So sometimes that does pressurize the situation. But I imagine, much like having a product business, I still like consulting more than I liked a traditional office role.
Oh, absolutely. And so I guess, in closing, with this podcast, what we're hoping to do is bring you in to our conversations like this, that Colleen and I are having regularly anyway. And considering the different stages that we are at and how that plays off of one another, maybe you'll find this helpful. Maybe you're looking to start your own business. Maybe you're looking to branch out into other things. whatever that might be, we want to invite you to sit at the table with us. We take the name of the podcast from a great little coffee shop in Arlington, Virginia called Northside Social, where we used to meet up before the pandemic. And so we're inviting you to sit at our table and listen in and hopefully share your own thoughts. So tell me, Colleen, what's going on with your consulting/transition to product business this week?
So I have been stuck in the idea generation phase of trying to start a small business for quite a while. And I've had a lot of different ideas that I've chased down, and they really have not amounted to much. So I've decided, instead of continually searching for something, I'm going to build something that I want, that I know I will use with my clients, and throw it out in the world and hope it sticks. Exactly.
Dog fooding. Yeah.
This really, for me, like a lot of the literature I read about startups, and I read a lot of literature about startups, says not to code before you have an established market. But the truth is, it's something I want. It's something I know my clients will use because I am their developer. And I'm sick of kind of spinning my wheels. I feel like I need to take more action.
So, Colleen, what is this idea you're working on?
So I am working on an image hosting platform. I hate to use the term platform. It's not really a platform. Basically, what I'm building is something that's going to be a JavaScript widget that you install into your site that's going to provide you with a drop zone UI, and then your users can drop their images into your drop zone UI. It's going to create cloud storage for you, and it's going to save them to the cloud, and the cloud will be under my business. I don't know if I explained that well. It'll be in the cloud. I'll put them in front of a CDN because I think the CDN part's really important. And it's just going to return the URL. So that's my plan. And there's a lot of image management software out there. Actually, there's a ton of image management software out there, but there's nothing that's just really easy. Like when you're working on a small SaaS app, in my opinion, you just want to move forward as quickly as possible and you want to make progress. And the stuff out there isn't bad, but I just want to make it dead simple, especially for like newer developers or developers who don't want to deal with a lot of image management, or they don't want to figure out how to use AWS. Like when you're a newer developer, you're just learning how to develop. You don't want to then have to go spend hours and hours figuring out AWS, in my opinion. So it's just going to make the process simple. It's going to be like a 5-minute install. You just drop the snippet in, you put the button on, and it will provide your users their drop zone, and all you have to do is save the URL of the image. So now you automatically have your image hosted on the cloud, so you don't have to worry about that. Like I said, I have not yet, but my goal is to put it in front of a CDN, so you don't have to worry about that. And then you can use the image, like you would any cloud image.
So have you talked to other developers who have talked about their frustrations with other image management platforms?
No.
Colleen!
So here's the thing. I know. So okay. I know, but like every client I have this freaking problem.
That's worth something.
Really irks me that there's not a better solution.
That's worth something.
That's worth something. And so when I do talk, okay, that's not fair. When I first started this, I did talk to people, and there is. I did talk to other people.
Before the pandemic, we talked to other people, right? In general. Yeah.
When I could talk to people. So I have talked to people about this, and a lot of them use so the people I know, like they use big, powerful solutions, like enterprise level solutions, because they work for enterprise level clientele, right? So a lot of my friends work for big, fancy companies. And so they have these big enterprise solutions. And so I have looked at those solutions, and they're not bad, but they're a pain to set up. It's way more like there's one that's really popular in the Rails community, and it's fine, but like it's just way more overhead when you just want your user to be able to add a couple images, right? Like it's a huge overhead to import this third-party library and configure it. It's a whole thing. You got to figure out how to use it. It's a whole thing. Like, it's just too hard for what you're trying to do. So I am trying to take this thing that almost every application needs. Your user usually has some kind of avatar. Most applications use some kind of images. So I'm just trying to take this thing that everyone needs and make it really, really easy. Like, just simplify the heck out of it.
It sounds like this is something that you experience frequently and is pretty annoying for you, which is, a great place to be for a potential product is something that a user experiences frequently and is something painful. If you had an idea and it's something that isn't very painful for people and doesn't happen very often, that's usually kind of a red flag. But if you can find something that's pretty frequent and pretty painful, that can be promising.
Yeah. So the first iteration of this I built was just for public images. So it was like for your static assets. And I built that because like images are just a pain point for me because they're just annoying, right? Users, they take these they have these huge files. Your designers give you these huge files and you have to, compress them and resize them and all this stuff. But the first thing I kind of built, which is the building blocks to what I'm working on now, was just public image hosting amongst teams. And that was cool, and I like that, but no one was really interested in that because no one cares so much about web performance. Very few people care so much about web performance, was my experience, that they're actually going to, resize all of their images that are just their static everyday images, or they're just going to throw them behind a CDN anyway, so they don't care. But this problem, I think the thing about this problem is it's a common problem, and there's many, many, many different ways to solve it. And I have seen, as a consultant, I worked for a lot of different companies over the past years, and I have seen all these different kinds of ways to solve it. And there's just but it just doesn't feel like there's an easy, consistent way. Like, you'll have one app that uses this gem, then one app that uses this gem, and then one app that does it this way. And I feel like we're taking this problem that doesn't have to be so hard and making it harder than it needs to be.
And as I hear you talk, what I think about is, you were mentioning earlier how you consume a lot of startup literature and talks and advice on starting a business. And something that always comes across in those kinds of venues is how, you should be passionate about it. You should be passionate about the business, and you should be passionate about what you're solving and whatnot. And, I don't think there are any, 8-year-old kids out there saying, Mom and Dad, when I grow up, I'm going to solve image management software. But what does drive someone is experiencing a problem so often that you are passionate about solving that feeling of pain. And I think this is something that really gets lost in that, startup literature, hustle porn, whatever you want to call it, is that the pain of something and really the empathy you feel for yourself and for other people who are experiencing that same problem. It doesn't have to be the specific problem itself, but the idea of taking away some amount of pain, whether that's for you or for other people, that is a huge motivator. And I think that's one of the great things about dog fooding is that you're solving a problem for yourself, so you are motivated to fix it. And worst case scenario, if nobody else uses it, you have solved a problem for yourself and you have eliminated a frustration in your life, and you just have more brain power that you can focus on things that you would rather think about rather than this super annoying problem that you're facing all the time.
Right. And I feel like this idea, I think I said, I mentioned that I kind of was stuck in this Ferris wheel of ideas without really getting anywhere. So the other thing that's nice about this idea is it's a small thing. I don't see this becoming a business, that grows into a big
It doesn't
thing.
have to be. Who says it has to be?
Right. I mean, I'm at the point, well, I guess no one. I guess and I'm at the point where I just wanted to put something out there because I feel like I've just been spinning my wheels for a while now, and I just need to kind of get back in the game. And yeah, you're right. This is a frequent problem I have. I would like to just have a consistent way to solve it. So next time I come up with someone, because I get a lot of these applications that are halfway done or almost done or need to be fixed in what I do, I'd like to just be able to all right, I don't know what this architecture is, but I'm putting this little widget in here and it's going to solve all our problems. And I don't have to do the whole AWS dance
you have to
again.
deal with in that specific area.
Yeah. And I really think too, like the beauty of a marketplace for Rails developers like Heroku is it helps people that are new to coding get up to speed quickly. And I feel like image storage in the cloud can be a really challenging issue for people who are new to coding because they just learned how to write a Rails app and deploy it. And now they have to figure out, cloud storage and how to manage that and how to resize their images and how to put them in front of a CDN. And it's just a lot. So I really do feel like this is a real problem. I don't know that it's a real problem that people will pay for. But it feels like a real problem to me. So my challenge now is twofold. Like, I'm going to do it. I'm like 90% done. And you remember what they say about like the last 10% takes 90% of the time or whatever. So of course, I've just onboarded a new client that I'm really excited about. And they just announced that the kids aren't going back to school. So I have a lot on my plate right now. And so really my goal is to prioritize this because this is really where I want to be. Like when I look at my life,
this is giving you satisfaction.
This is what I want to do. Yes. So much satisfaction. Like this is what I want to do.
You have like hope that you will solve this problem, which is lacking in a lot of other elements right now.
I have hope. And so my goal this week is thanks. My goal this week is really to prioritize getting this done. I'm so close, but of course, like everyone, like I always want to add one more feature, right?
Don't do
like
it.
actually,
just
it
get
works
it out there.
right now.
Like bare minimum, like as you said, like stuff like creating an account or creating an API key or all of the stuff that actually lets you launch something like that will probably take more time than you realize and will have more complications than you realize. But at that point, as you said, you're so close to being over the finish line that you can just bang it out.
Yeah. And that's my goal. Like, I really like it. Well, I do need to, I want to finish it. Right now, my goal is just to finish it. Right. And I know that again, and then I don't know if anyone's going to buy it. But I'm so close to getting it done. And I just really want to get something out there. So like my goal for this upcoming week and like my priority is going to try and give myself the time. It's so hard as, a human that has children and a spouse and all these demands on your time. It's so hard to like prioritize that time. And so my goal is to find a way to prioritize this time the next week because I'm so close to finishing it and I just want to get it done. So that's what's going on in my life. Let's talk about what's going on with GeoCodio.
Yeah, so something I have been thinking a lot about this week is pricing.
Ooh, pricing. That sounds fun.
Pricing is the hardest part of having a business. Like time and time again, it's the thing that we're banging our heads against the wall to figure out. And I think it's underappreciated as a difficult element. But it's every time you launch a product or doing something new or get a unique request from a customer, pricing is always the thing we spend the most time on.
So what is so hard about pricing? Like, that's a serious question. I don't know. Can't you just be like,
So there's a lot of stuff that's tough about pricing. I mean, the big thing is that, right, like from a very basic level, you want to not only cover your costs, but you want to make some money on top of that, right? So you have your costs and then, off the bat, whatever the price is, you're going to lose, I always just ballpark 40% to taxes and other various expenses like that. So then just figuring out where your break even is alone, like that's just the first step of it. But the hard thing about pricing is you need to price it for the value the customer is getting. And that may not always be clear to you. And the value that a customer gets from it may not be entirely apparent. It may be difficult to parse out. But also, you need to figure out how the customer perceives the problem and what they understand, like what they express as the problem and how they would want to solve that. And that has to be expressed through the pricing. So like a really basic example of this, for example, is Slack, where they charge you per user if you're on a paid plan, which makes it easy to figure out, okay, we have 20 people in our organization and I think it's like $5 a month or something like that. We'll just say that. And so we're going to be charged $100 a month. I have 20 people. I can very easily calculate what it's going to cost me to use this, right? This is a metric that I understand, and I can see the value of having all of these 20 people be able to talk to one another on this platform, ostensibly, even though Slack is, a huge problem for my own productivity. And
Me too.
Yeah. So I was struggling with pricing a lot this past week because a customer came to us with a problem that's adjacent to what we do and is something we actually have an internal tool for, but we've never productized, but we've considered it. And they asked us to productize it because they were really frustrated with their existing options, and due to some limitations and the pricing of their current vendors for it, they weren't able to use those tools with as many customers as they wanted to. And they wanted to really expand that. And they were like, we really love your terms of service and your pricing and how you guys do things. Like, is there any way that you guys can help us with this? So, we're kind of looking at it, and as one of the first steps of looking at pricing is always like looking at competitors. So how are the competitors pricing this? Just what kind of structure are they using? Very often you see the kind of, starter, professional, enterprise, like tiered pricing, right? That's pretty common. And so I just find it helpful, just, how do competitors frame the pricing? Because that helps you see how they understand the customer's problem and the kinds of features that they are launching for specific customer problems. So for example, with Slack, you only get compliance reporting at their highest paid plan because the people who need compliance reporting are able to pay for it. Those are banks, those are, regulated organizations that have to report on it, right? So that's only at the very highest tier. They're capturing that value there for that feature. But something else I was looking at was, how do they perceive the customer's perception of the problem?
How do your competitors perceive the customer's perception?
Yes. How do they understand the customer's frame of reference? Like, I have just heard myself on the phone from the customer, how they understand the problem. How is this being then expressed by the competitors? And what I noticed, which was really strange actually, was that all of the companies out there for this specific service were pricing it basically based on their costs. So all of the pricing was based on their own bandwidth costs and then effectively a markup on top of that. And so this is for map tiling, which is you need in order to load a map on a website, whether you get it from Google or from somebody else. And most companies charge for it based on the number of interactions that a particular user has with the map. And so that's basically the number of tiles that have to be sent from the CDN. This is our CDNs episode, I guess. From the CDN to load all of those little squares on the map, which is why when you're like zooming in really far on a map, sometimes you like see like squares loading because it's literally squares of the map loading, right? And so how they charge for it is the number of tiles that load, and so how much the person interacts with it. The problem with that, do you know how many map tiles you required be loaded last time you were looking for a dentist or trying to locate the nearest grocery store? Right. So somebody can go, to their analytics. They can see how many users they have, but they don't know whether one person is going to be 15 map tile loads or 50 map tile loads, right? But the way these things were charged was just based on the map tile loads. So I was trying to ask our customer, are you even able to tell me like how many users you have or what you're currently paying for this, anything? And they weren't even able to like translate those numbers very well because these companies made it so hard for them to figure out even what they're being charged and why. And so
much like AWS.
So the hard thing about that was like, wow, we know the customer is frustrated by the fact that they can't even predict, right? It's not like that we have 20 people and it's going to be $5 a month. And those are terms that I understand. This is like we have 10, we have 10,000 users. And if they have 10 map tile loads or they have 50 map tile loads, and we actually have no idea. Companies don't like when their pricing is unpredictable. They really like stability. And so it was taking that and figuring, okay, we know the customer likes a way for stable pricing. So technically, how can we figure out like what a stable, consistent monthly price is? But then how can we figure out a way to price this that is in terms that the user understands, that is not charging them for this metric that they don't use in any other scenario, that we're basically marking up bandwidth costs on top of it? How do we frame it as something that they understand? And so that's something we're thinking about a lot this week. But just keeps reminding me that pricing is so hard, and it's so easy to get wrong. It's also easy to change it and test it.
So what do you guys do now for pricing?
We have a couple of different pricing. So this product I'm talking about here, we haven't launched it yet, and we're
right. This would be a new product.
So for Geocodio in general, we have a freemium model, which actually people describe it's not a pricing model, it's a marketing model, which is totally true. But so we have a free tier, which is actually something we basically inherited from Google when we launched. They had 2,500 free lookups per day, free address lookups. And so we're like, if that's the industry standard right now, we have to do that. So we did that, but then what really frustrated us was that you couldn't just pay for whatever you needed on top of that. It was either 2,500 free per day or like 100,000 a day for a like $10,000 a year enterprise contract. And we're like, that's not us. Like we just need 5,000 addresses per day. And actually, so pricing was something that encouraged us to start Geocodio. And so we have the free tier, and then we have pay as you go on top of that. For people who have lower volume usage. Then we have an unlimited tier, which is for people who have much higher usage, usually about 5 million per day. And then we have all sorts of customizations on top of that. So we have people that we're running custom clusters for because they need to process 20 million a day. We have on-premise customers, like we kind of have a wide mix. And then we also have our Geocodio Maps project, which is monthly subscription only, but we're probably going to change that in the future and merge it in with the main product. But then we're going to have this map tiling product, and that's also maps. And so what are the names of things? Naming and pricing, honestly. Like naming and pricing. We suck at naming. I feel like everybody thinks they suck at naming. Naming and pricing. They're hard. Sometimes harder than anything technical, quite frankly.
So have you come to are you still like working it out, or have you come up with an idea?
For the most part, yeah. I mean, we sent the customer a proposal. We spent the whole weekend talking about it, which our daughter loved. And
she's going to be so business savvy, though.
Or she's going to like rebel and be like a communist artist who doesn't believe that business should exist because, yeah. So we sent them a proposal. Actually, I need to get back to them. It's, you were talking on the last episode, or no, was it this one, about how you feel like you're 90% of the way there and it's just like some polishing touches. Like, have you figured out the pricing for your product yet?
Oh, gosh, no. But mine will be like I haven't even thought about that, but mine will be cloud storage. So, I mean, I was just going to go with markup, whatever cloud storage cost you are using.
I mean, and that works, but like, I would almost consider you to be like, is there any way I can charge for like the number of images someone has, even though you're going to be paying by the storage size, which is, measured in gigabytes, right?
Right.
Like if you can somehow charge for a metric that the customer understands, like 10 images, they understand that. They may not understand how their images translate
into size.
Into bytes. Like they may not get that.
No, you're totally right. And I hadn't given it any thought. But now that you say that, it makes way more sense to be like, you have this many users, each user gets to upload 5 images. That's your fee based on, the number of images, because the customer understands that.
And if they need more, always be email us.
Yeah, that's a great
right?
idea.
And then you'll probably have some customers who, if you have mentally you say, okay, I'm going to, I have this many, gigs on my plan, so this is how many each customer gets. You'll have some customers who will go over that, but you'll probably have some who are below it. And as long as that all averages out and you've calibrated that, then it'll be okay. And you can just have tiers and be then, here's the tier where you get more.
That's a great idea. Because you're right. Like pricing something in a way they understand that makes so much more sense.
And make it easy for them to explain it to their boss too, right? I always try to picture it how would my customer go to their boss and explain, you should pay for this service. We've determined it's necessary. It's better than what we're using right now or the other competition. And, we've got this many page views per month or this many users or this many transactions we're processing or whatever that metric is that your customer is using internally that they would talk about with their boss to sell their boss on buying your software. Try to figure out what that term is. Talk to your customer and try to find a way to price it in a way that matches the language that they're using. But not only the language, the mental model they're using of why they need to use the service in the first place.
Yeah, that makes great sense.
And it's hard. I will not undersell it that it is difficult to crawl inside other people's heads and other people's, sort of organizations and try to figure out how they think about things. That's very difficult. But if you can get it right, it's very powerful, and you don't have to get it right the first time. You can keep iterating it. Companies change their their pricing models all the time. Amy Hoy has some great content on that, and it's possible, but it deserves a lot of time.
So for your new product, I don't know if you can share, but did you decide to charge based? Did you find a metric that kind of set you apart?
I think what we're going to do is we are going to charge by bandwidth, but it seems like pretty much all of the companies out there right now are only charging as pay as you go, even on enterprise tiers. So you might end up paying Google $6,000 a month. Yeah, but on a pay as you go model, so it's going to be variable. So we're going to do it tiered, and we're going to start out with just one tier. Okay. And then we've set a price for if you need more, here's an additional cost, and we'll just kind of see how that goes. And we want it to be clear with the customer. It's we may change this in the future, but we'll make sure that whatever we change it to, you're not going to pay more. If those tiers end up making it so that the amount you're getting right now, it is more expensive, we'll keep you at the current cost.
Okay.
Which is always a good thing to do. Always let people keep legacy pricing. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That was really illuminating. Pricing, very hard.
And by the way, I want to mention that the Stripe has a good guide to pricing as well. Patrick McKenzie wrote it in the Stripe Atlas guides, and that's something that I consult often on, thinking about pricing, and he kind of dissects a couple of different pricing scenarios for some companies, so you can see real life examples of pricing critiques. Well, that covers this week's Software Social podcast. We hope you enjoyed sitting at our table at the virtual coffee shop this week, and we hope you'll join us next week.